Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. It's the morning after the night before. Aston Villa, a 10-man Aston Villa, Dan, have beaten Crystal Palace 3-0 on Boxing Day. How are you doing, mate? You look a bit worse for wear today. You
Yeah,
enjoyed that one a
man.
bit too
Yeah,
much, maybe.
I'll tell you what. I'm sorry. First of all, I just want to say that I'm sorry to all of the fans of the Villa Filler that didn't get this pod yesterday. It's completely on me. Dan wasn't even at the game. He managed to go to the game, get back, was ready to set up. I, however, was in a state whereby I was not ready to record a podcast. So I'm sorry we've had to wait until 9 a.m. I'm not entirely convinced that I'm now in a state that's ready to record a podcast, but it's definitely an improvement on yesterday.
I mean, to be fair, I'm surprised you're up this early. I never put two and two together. So when I said 9 a.m., you must have thought, you're a bastard, man. Like, screw you. So I apologise for
Mate,
that.
there's no cure. There's no cure like talking Villa on a day like today, especially after a result like yesterday. Mate, be it 5 a.m., 6 a.m., I would have been up buzzing, ready to talk to you about this one because I was watching this game, obviously, and like watching, I was like, I can't wait to hop on the pod and talk about this. And it's so nice to have that feeling again, mate. But I mean, yet again, your experience of watching the game is far more interesting than mine. So divulge, tell me yet again, what an exclusive to have, man. How many other Villa podcasts can have this?
Not many, man, unless they're getting some big guests on. But no, it was quite the experience. It's good to, I'm not cursed. It turns out. Obviously, my
Yeah,
first
that
game
hoodoo's gone.
was Leeds, which was the 3-0 drubbing, which we'll say less about. I was then there for Burnley, which the curse is probably still there just a little bit. You don't have 28 shots in a Premier League game and not score. So I'm sorry for that one, Villains. But by God, Dan, I mean, I tweeted about this, but this one was really reminiscent of our trip, me, you, and Els, Rotherham away. That
Oh, wow.
that shades of Rotherham, 10-man coming from behind against all odds. Well, we didn't come from behind, but having the 1-man deficit against all odds, overcoming our opponents, and in so many ways. I mean, even there was a run from Grealish down that left, which set Ollie Watkins up late on. But we'll get onto that. But genuinely, one of the best Villa performances, arguably, of the decade, Dan, and it's come, right at the end of the decade. But I mean, it was marvelous, and obviously being there in the press box, I've got to be somewhat impartial. But which on that, right? I don't know if you've seen, Dan. You probably didn't. I tweeted before the game saying how I was excited to see Eze, which I was. He's an absolute baller. Everyone who listens to the podcast knows Dan and I really like Eze. And I had it was just two people, but it did really rattle me. Two people quoted that being like, "Is this guy even a Villa fan? Like, what the hell? Like, why are you tweeting about opposition players?" And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm obliged to be somewhat biased in the press box, and second of all, if you can't appreciate the talent that your opponents have, then sure, like your opinion is on football and on Villa is just invalid, because you can't just blindly go, Palace are crap, Villa are amazing. You can't. You have to be able to appreciate
What
other teams'
isn't isn't
talents.
that the whole point of wanting to be in the Premier League and not the
Exactly.
Championship? Is that you can go down to Villa Park and watch Villa play against better players?
That's the thing. Like, when you think, obviously, as you said, Dan, in recent years, we've been in the Championship, and it really made me miss the day. And of course, you never want to see Villa lose. But I remember sitting in the Holte with my dad when Arsenal took us apart 5-0, and Alexis Sanchez was on fire. And of course, you're angry and frustrated at Villa because you're losing 5-0. But when you're watching a player like Alexis Sanchez in his prime, you are just in awe. So
Yeah.
to them two people who were trying to get a few bites, screw you. I still had a great time. I was at the game, you weren't. So that's all I'll say on that
Yes.
one. And to the
Yes.
guy
Run it back. Run
to
it
the guy
back.
who was like, "Oh, I bet you'd celebrate if Eze scored," I probably would have. I'd have been happy, somewhat, for him. But regardless of that,
And wants all the smoke.
yeah, well, that's the thing. So on the celebrating thing, as I say, usually got to be biased. You've got to be, you can't be biased. Sorry, you've got to be neutral. I I got a bit excited when Bertrand scored his goal. I can't lie. I stood up and clapped, and everyone was looking at me, and I was like, "Shit, I shouldn't have done that." So yeah, there was that, but it was the overcoming excitement, Dan, of finally having midfield runners get into the box and capitalise on a mistake made by Vincente Guaita. What's interesting about the goal is, and literally just a second before it was coming on, I was just quickly watching the highlights again with my dad on Match of the Day. So Ollie's drifted out wide. First of all, beautiful pass from McGinn and Traore to set up this movement, Dan. Absolutely pure class. Watkins is occupying his position on the right, gets his shot off. And what really confused me from a Palace point of view is when Ollie gets that shot off, despite I believe Patrick Van Aanholt being there and obviously being the man who's playing left back, so naturally is the first line of defence from what Ollie was. Cheku Kouyaté decides to try and come across and intervene, which is a big no, because as soon as Guaita parries the ball out, it's in the space where Kouyaté should have been, and it's in the space where Bertrand Traore arrived and finished with his right foot. So a wonderful goal from a Villa perspective to score, because as I've said, it's been so long since we've had late runners arriving in the box. It's something that I can really get behind. But I can't help but feel like it was an avoidable goal for Palace to concede had Kouyaté have just known his basics in terms of defensive positioning, because at the point of which where Guaita has parried Watkins' shot away, he's done his job. It's just unfortunate where it falls, the fact there's not a Palace player to pick the ball up, and the fact that Bertrand Traore is there, Dan.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a few things you can look into that with. I think the first thing to note is that obviously looking at it from a Villa perspective is obviously midfield runners getting into the box, and if Bertrand Traore hadn't have been there, John McGinn was, Jack Grealish was. You watch them have to celebrate, and you realise that Douglas Luiz is just out of shot. So you got 3 or 4 Villa players there lining up to slot home that rebound, and we've been crying out for that over previous seasons. I think on Cheku Kouyaté and Scott Dan, it's not the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League right now, is it, to say the least? No. Scott Dan, former Blue Nose. I get every bit of pleasure out watching him come to Villa Park and have 3 goals put past him. Cheku Kouyaté is a player that I don't actually mind too much, but you can see that having played in midfield for as long as he has, those positional elements and things that ultimately I think come with experience, knowing that, right, okay, Ollie Watkins could get a shot up here, keeper could parry it. That's where you see your experience. Veteran centre-backs perhaps hold position and grab that rebound for themselves. But no, I think, obviously on this podcast, Dan, obviously I'm going to make this all about Bertrand Traore. Netted in consecutive Premier League appearances, which is great. And that is, I'm really happy for him that he's had this little... I really hate to say renaissance, mate, like he had any responsibility to be scoring hat-tricks in his first few games of the season.
Yeah.
He's taken a good amount of games. Actually, I would dare say a really quite quick amount of games to get up to pace.
Yeah.
I think considering, we're less than halfway into the season, and this man is already, getting braces, getting assists. He's scored as many goals in his last 2 games than he did in his first 19 games in the Premier League. And that obviously that's including Chelsea. But you can see that this man's grown in confidence. He's coming on leaps and bounds. And whilst the goal that he scored wasn't as impressive as the one that he got against West Brom, it still takes a different kind of knack. And there is definitely a pleasure, as you said, mate, of seeing players arrive in those spaces at the right times. And it's an intelligence play, isn't it? And it's good to know that Bertie has that side to his game. And it's probably the only goal I'll ever see Bertrand Traore score with his right foot. So
that's a positive in itself, isn't it? Weak foot goal. And he clipped the post, Bertie, in a goal which, Guaita was well beaten, and I was certain it was going in. I was absolutely certain. But again, just creating them chances is really good to see. And shout out to Statman Dave for these ones. But Bertrand's first half, obviously, because he did get substituted, he made 4 ball recoveries. He created 3 chances, 3 shots, 1 on target, obviously the goal. He had 3 attempted take-ons and 2 successful take-ons. We're seeing, as you say, Dan, someone who is now comfortable. He's embedded in the side relatively quick, because if you think last season, it's at this point Villa fans are screaming for Douglas Luiz and Trezeguet to go back to their old clubs. Essentially, it was at this point actually. I think we were a certain someone said that this isn't La Liga, but that's another bad take for another day. Bertrand he's so good, and to be fair, I felt for Dean because who do you bring off? Bertrand scored the goal. He's looking live. He's looking the most lively out of the wingers, I'd say, at this point in the game as well. But by no means was Antmore playing poorly. But at the time, obviously, Bertie's got the goal. He's got the sauce. He's cutting inside. He's taking players on. I love that we play with these inverted wingers, by the way, as well. Just on a side note, it just offers a different dimension to the attack. It puts an emphasis on the fullbacks getting forward. I'm a big fan of it. But I mean, how does he explain to Bertrand why he's come off? He's scored the goal. He's clipped the post. He's playing really well. Obviously, the decision's paid off in the end, bringing on Concert. It would have been so easy as soon as Villa got the goal and obviously had the man sent off, which I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the initial yellow card, Dan, because I think the second one was, of course, always going to be a booking. That Villa had something about them to, I mean, it's cliche, but the best form of defence is attack. We wouldn't have seen Villa do this 12 months ago, Dan. Yeah, we brought on Ezri Konsa, and it's not quite the same as Rotherham, where we were like, do you know what? We'll bring Jonathan Codger on and really go for this. But Villa persisted. They never gave up. They chased every second ball. They picked their attacks very, very well, which is something that's difficult to do, especially against Crystal Palace. This was a very poor Crystal Palace team, I must asterisk. I did not expect this Palace side to sit back for 80 minutes and then only give it a go when they're 3-0 down. That was probably the most disappointing aspect for me. Obviously, I'm not going to complain. Villa won 3-0, but I expected so much more with the talent that they had on the pitch, especially when we went 1-0 down. I thought I tweeted at half-time, I was speaking to Mickey, part of Heart of the Holte. I really expected Villa to have less of the ball, and there were occasions in the game where they did manage to get the ball up to Wilf and Big Chris in the first half, and they were playing some nice little 1-2 touch outside the box, just moving the ball around. And when you have one less man, that can obviously be very labouring if you're just constantly shifting from side to side. That really wasn't the case, and I mean, I guess. I should have known Aston Villa in the 2020-2021 season. We play ball. We don't sit back. We go for this, Dan. And I mean, it was remarkable to see it. And as I said at the top of the pod, Dan, probably one of the best performances of the decade.
I was saying to the watching the game yesterday that it was one of our better performances of the season, and I think the fact that we were playing with 10 men is references that, and the fact that Villa wouldn't have gone and done that, and that now we've got the pieces and we have the confidence and we have the players that have signed last season and are now embedded, and this whole squad is in this place where we can go 10 men down in front in a very high pressure game. And the opponents didn't really give it that, but the nature of it being on the BBC, the nature of it being on Boxing Day, knowing the nation is watching, that it would have been very easy to sort of regress a little bit under that pressure. But to go out and play such expensive football with 10 men, the fact that, despite playing with 10 men for the entirety, you're going to like this one, mate, playing with that 10 men for the entirety of the half, Villa amassed an XG of 4.4 against Palace, which is the highest single game return for any side in the Premier League in any game this season.
Wow. I mean, that's right. And if I'm correct, only two other teams have done that, which was Manchester City, who have done it 8 times, which is not really a surprise, and Chelsea versus Leeds this season, the only other side to amass a total that high, which is mental.
It's great, mate. And look, I think on the sending off, I think the first yellow, I think it's one of those whereby in isolation, I could maybe understand Tyrone's yellow bit. It's what Wilf does is so much worse than what Tyrone does. It sort of seemed a little bit unfair that they were both given yellows, because Tyrone, the little stamp and the downward movement isn't great, but Wilf's reaction is far outshadows that, in my opinion. And I think, look, Tyrone, he's sort of, I'm disappointed in him, but I think because of the nature of the result, I don't want to spend too much time talking on that. I think he's disappointed. It's one of those where he won't do it again. He'll gloss over it. He made a nice tweet afterwards, taking full responsibility. And ultimately, for me, that's said and done. I have no beefs with that. It was a silly mistake, but it hasn't cost the team, so we can sort of forgive and forget on that one. But no, mate, just watching Villa go out a team like that was so impressive to keep, and yet another clean sheet. And for me, what was most amazing yesterday, mate, is it's time to run some individual respects, because I didn't know who to keep an eye on yesterday for Villa. Like,
Yeah.
so many times this season, it's just been the Jack show. And it's like, you just watch Jack Grealish and just completely in awe of what he did. But there were so many players yesterday, from Emmy to Matty Cash to Matty Target to Courtney to Grealish to Traore to El Ghazi, again, amazing, to Ollie
Baller.
Watkins, where I was just like, I don't know, I don't know who to put my eyes on, like, in the team. Like, usually I like to focus on one player and try and absorb their overall game. But Villa's just, pretty much every player that was involved in going forward, from the fullbacks to the striker, was just mesmeric yesterday. And it was just so enjoyable to watch a Villa team play like that.
100%. And it's, I mean, the fact that performance, as well as the performance against West Brom, and who did we play before West Brom?
It was Burnley, wasn't it?
Burnley. Then these 3 games are a testament to how good and how far our squad has come, because Courtney Hawes has stepped in when Conce was injured, not looked out of place at all. I said 2 podcasts ago, he needs to learn to head with his forehead, and he did. He managed to, when it mattered, there he was, and scoring the goal. I'm so happy for Courtney. Again, no Courtney slander on this podcast. I love Courtney. Dan loves Courtney. And I mean, the fact that he's it's now obviously with Mings suspended, the partnership of House and Concert is now inevitably going to feature against Chelsea. And I don't think there's that much of an argument for Ty to, make his way back in, or, providing all goes well against Chelsea. Yeah, there's no reason for him to just walk straight back in the team after the performances that them two have put in, and for Concert to come on as well. And obviously you've got to get up to the speed of the game, which I think is probably why we saw him come on, even though it was just for a minute in the first half. Let him get on the pitch, let him have a touch of the ball, so he's not just thrown in the deep end, coming on in the second half. It's really important. And again, the fact Anwar El Ghazi was almost dead and buried like a month ago, here he is now scoring absolute screamers with his right foot, like it doesn't even matter. That's the thing. And these are the kind of goals that we see the Villa admins share on Twitter and of El Ghazi. And he does this every week. And we're finally seeing that like training ground player. And I think when Grealish did an interview and said that, everyone's really good on the training ground, I think he was maybe trying to get something out of El Ghazi in that. But of course, it's not always the it's not always the way to get a response from a player. But Dan, at the moment, obviously we sit in 6th, which is crazy. If we win our games in hand, we go up to 2nd, which is even crazier. Villa at the moment, we're averaging a 1.92 points per game this season. By the end of the season, if we keep this up, do you know how many points we'll be on, Dan?
I'm sure you're about to tell me. I can't wait to hear this.
73. Now, that is, of course, the Premier League in the past few years has shown you need 100 points to win it. But the 73 points, we survived on goal difference last season, Dan. Goal difference kept us up.
Last season, United finished 3rd on 66 points.
There you go. I mean, Dean Smith Wonderball is in full fruition, but as well, and plenty of stats going around about this game. Dan, as I said to you off air, I've got plenty here lined up on my phone, and a stat that is not often published. So when I saw this on Match of the Day, of course I had to get a picture of it. It is the running stats from Villa. Now, we've mentioned on podcasts before how Ollie Watkins really does set the tone for Villa's attacking play. Greg Evans of The Athletic, friend of the podcast, wrote a very good article on this as well, detailing how important Ollie Watkins is, despite not, he's not scored his 6, which is unfortunate for Ollie, and he will be the most frustrated that he didn't score yesterday, because he had so many opportunities, but you can't be mad because of his overall contributions to the team. So in terms of distance covered, Villa's top 3 players, John McGinn, Ollie Watkins and Jack Grealish, all covering between 124 kilometres to 136 kilometres throughout the season, which is absolutely mental. And then the most sprints, Ollie Watkins leads the line on that with 265. Jack Grealish is second with 189. So when you think about how Jack is often the driving force, he's the one who picks the ball up in the midfield and really takes Villa forward. The fact that Ollie is, he's like 50 or 60 sprints ahead of him, that's mental. And just a testament to his overall play, because there is a minority of people, and I think as well, Dan, you may have been wrongly accused in the comments just after a few, conversations we'd had about Watkins on the podcast. Dan is by no means an Ollie Watkins hater, guys, just to clear that up. But, a few people may get that criticism misconstrued. But Ollie, he's so important to this side. And as much as this was the Wesley Filler podcast, we love Big Wes. We're gonna continue to big up our man. He doesn't contribute to the side like this. Ollie Watkins is the main man. No. He is the number one striker, Dan. He's so important for how we play. We've seen Ross Barkley has missed about 5 games now. We would have missed Ollie Watkins a hell of a lot more than Ross Barkley. I've just got to put it out there, mate.
For sure. No, absolutely. And look, I had no beef with Ollie Watkins. I'm really happy to see that he's putting in these kind of performances. My only beef with Ollie Watkins is that for all he did on the defensive end, I felt that in certain games he was either so heavily involved or he would just struggle to get in an attacking sense involved as much. But if there's one thing he was yesterday, the man was involved. And there was a real nice stat, mate, and this is probably the one that I picked up, and it's, not for what it seems on surface level, but if you actually dig into it a little bit more. So yesterday, Ollie attempted 10 shots without scoring against Palace yesterday. The last player to attempt more in a Premier League game without scoring was Zlatan for Man United. He tried 12 against Burnley in October 2016. The man in goal for Burnley against Zlatan that day was Tom Heaton, who was back in the matchday squad yesterday.
He was, yeah.
So there's a really nice sort of full circle with that stuff there, which I really enjoyed. Shout out to Tom Heaton. I know we both really like him, and we wish him all the best.
Your dad.
In terms of, yeah, absolutely, my guy. I really hope he comes back from that injury, and obviously it's hard to. I want to say we hope to see a little bit more of him, but with the way he's playing out, I don't know if we will. But it's just good. I think he's a real good figure to have back in the squad, and I'm really just happy to have him back. Little side note. But no, as for Ali, how he didn't score a goal yesterday was beyond me. It was really willing them in for him because of all he does for the side, and it was a shame that he didn't manage to get him. There was a lot, there was that one from that beautiful little disguised pass by Jack, wasn't there, when
taking out
he runs down the left, cuts in from the right, and the guile and secrecy on that pass to slip it into Ollie. Just the 50 Premier League chances created for Jack Grealish this season. No biggie.
It's nothing.
No, absolutely. And yeah, mate, it rounded off a really nice all-round attacking performance yesterday. But just before we wrap up this performance, again, just because of how different it is to last season, I almost feel obliged to credit the defence every time we keep a clean sheet. And obviously, Emmy is two clean sheets ahead of any other goalkeeper in the Premier League at the moment. But if you take it onto Europe, there's only 2 goalkeepers that have more clean sheets than Emi Martinez this season. One of them is a certain Jan Oblak of possibly the greatest defensive side in European football over the last decade, over in Atleti. And considering where Villa have come from last season, to see Villa keep clean sheets with ease is really important. Like, the only time I ever felt it was threatened was literally in the first minute when Palace had that chance. Mings was,
caught on the spin,
half asleep,
yeah,
and there was that chance for Crystal Palace. That's the only time I felt during the game that they posed any real threat. There was that one chance where, in the second half, where honestly I think I almost went into cardiac arrest when Benteke hit that shot on the. And it flashed right wide of Emmy's post, when it went into the north, and I thought my life was about to crumble before my very eyes. But no, just yet again, considering that we went down to 10 men, we again had to chop and change that back line. Just an outstanding performance by those 5 guys back there.
It really was. And I mean, having such a strong defence does allow the foundation for Villa to be creating as many chances and scoring as many goals as they are. Villa currently sit top in the shots per game category in the Premier League, Dan, as well. A whole shot ahead of Liverpool with 16.5. I say Liverpool 15.5. Leeds are actually at 15.4. Then you've got Manchester City, who are also on 15.4, and Manchester United 14.3. These are all teams that freely create handfuls of chances and score plenty of goals. So the fact that we're leading the pack, I mean, it's just amazing. And to be honest, I just think Villa are due a bit more respect than we're getting at the moment. I mean, you mentioned Emi there. Everyone's saying how Edouard Mendy has been one of the signings of the summer, which, of course, when you're keeping clean sheets at Chelsea after following in from Kepa from last season, of course, there's going to be a large amount of press on you, which I completely understand. Mendy has been a fantastic signing, has made some big saves, and has been a really important part of that Chelsea side, Dan. But Emi has kept 2 more clean sheets than him. He has looked very assured. And just to briefly talk about Chelsea and Edouard Mendy, Dan, he had a nightmare yesterday. Obviously, we play against Chelsea in a few days' time. Dean Smith is going to be looking at this one and smelling blood, man. That Chelsea side were poor last night. They were very poor, and I mean they had the opportunity to make it 3-2. Obviously, Jorginho, with his very casual penalty style, squandered the opportunity to salvage some respect for Chelsea. But it was a very poor performance from Lampard's men. Obviously, our guy Tammy scored in that game. Wonderful little goal. But I mean, that VAR check, that was painful watching that, man. But it's weird because it was a response from Arsenal, which I think a lot of people didn't expect. There's been a lot of Arsenal relegation talk, which is never going to have any legs. I mean, as funny as it is, and as great as it is to meme on Arsenal because of Arsenal fan TV and the like, they're never going to be in a relegation dogfight. But it was huge for them to get that win against Chelsea, Dan. And obviously Ross Barkley will miss that. He didn't play yesterday, so it's nice to know that he'll be rested well for the New Year's. Probably feature against Manchester United on New Year's Day. But I'm looking at this Chelsea game, Dan, as one of our most potentially winnable games. Now, don't come back and clip this of the season.
Well, mate, we've had a nice run of games recently, haven't we? If you look back as far as Brighton, West Ham, then we had Newcastle. That was obviously then postponed. We did Wolves, Burnley, West Brom, Palace. And to be honest with you, we've picked up basically around about the amount of points that I would have expected us to from those games. These are the games that you need to capitalise on. Now it's Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool in the Cup, then Spurs, then Everton. So we're really going to find out just where this Villa rank amongst that top 6. We're now playing with the big boys, and we find ourselves up in the upper echelons of the table, and we're really going to find out whether we belong there over the next few games. And I'm really excited to see how we square up to those teams. Chelsea, it was, I thought, an interesting decision not to play Ross yesterday, because considering he can't play against Chelsea, he said Ross was fine. He can't feel his injury on the training ground. I thought it would have made sense to give him some minutes, considering he can't play next week either. But, I've got no quarrels with it. And so it's a shame that we won't see Ross. But, I'm really excited to see over these next few games. Chelsea really run hot and cold. You don't really know what you're going to get from performance to performance this season. But they just have... And it's funny that, I'm going to make a very similar claim to one you made at the top of the podcast, whereby there's just so many players I can't wait to see play for Chelsea against the Villa.
How dare you, Dan? How dare you? You should know you can't appreciate opposition players.
Jeez. I'm a bit of I think, all right-minded football fans are Kai Havertz aficionados. I don't think Lampard knows how to get the best out of Kai.
No, he doesn't.
There are so many players for Chelsea, which I'm really excited to play for Villa, and I'm quite confident to see that, even if going to Stamford Bridge we don't necessarily get the points, I think, if we go and maintain our clean sheet record there, I'll be hugely impressed. And so I wouldn't bank on it. You never know. It's very hard to say that we're going to go there and win, but just ultimately, if Villa really go there, really contest that game and show that we belong right at the top of that table, for me, that's the best thing that can come out of the game. It's just giving that confidence to the players that they can go and compete at that level.
100%. It's about, and again, to use it as a yardstick, how we performed against them last season at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, they Trezeguet scored that wonderful goal, which the ball touched his head, his knee, and his foot, which was funny. They obviously ended up walking away with the 3 points there, and at Villa Park as well. I thought we made a really good account of ourselves. Obviously, Courtney scored in that game as well, and obviously, we didn't win that game either, but it was an important performance during the restart, which I think, results can be looked at in isolation, but I think it's the performances that often matter, especially when the backs are against the wall. Obviously, you need points on the board, but I think Chelsea was always going to have been a free hit. Was it the assistant to the regional manager podcast, or was that for Wolves? I can't remember.
That was. Yeah, it was around then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was around that time. And
how the tone of this podcast has changed.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's the thing. Like since June, but how Villa have changed, and how we've galvanised is truly remarkable. So, something that we haven't said for a while, but this will be a good yardstick for how far Villa have come and how well Villa can do. Just generally in the Premier League. Obviously, as you say, we're in them upper echelons now. It's time to really make the most of it, because we've got some tough games coming up in Manchester United and Spurs. Dan, as always, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you on the Villa Filler podcast. Shout out to everyone who has been watching the podcast recently, the Transfer Rumour Mill episodes. You guys seem to be loving them, so don't worry. We've got another one that will probably come out tomorrow, which is Monday when you're listening to this. And we'll have obviously plenty of transfer content coming in January as well, when we've obviously got a few more sort of solid links, rumours, whatever, that will happen. And I think Dan and I will potentially start live streaming Villa Football Manager Save at some point within the next few weeks as well. So keep your eyes open for that one, guys. And if you enjoyed this content, please do hit the like button, comment your thoughts below on the performance. Who was your man of the match? Because I picked Ollie Watkins for my report, but I spent a lot of time deliberating on who would go in. So let us know who your man of the match was. And if you enjoyed this content, please do subscribe. It means the world. We've had a fair few new subscribers recently, which is great. 3,418 subs we're on at the moment. If we can hit 3,500 by the new year, that would be absolutely insane. So yeah, we appreciate your support. Like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.